A Tiny Revolution features adults having adult conversations, which means that adult language is probably going to be present, just so you know. Hey friends, you're listening to A Tiny Revolution, a podcast about ordinary people living revolutionary lives. My name is Kevin Garcia. Welcome to episode 80, and y'all, happy Christmas, happy New Year's. I was gone last week because I was with my cousins and my babies and the nieces and nephews and all that stuff, and I'm sure that you were doing the same. So I thought I'd come to you on a Monday rather than on Wednesday because I have got the literal, podcast guest of my dreams. And Nadia, if you're listening to this, yes, I have a completely professional, platonic, mildly romantic crush on you. Don't worry, nothing weird, because you got a bae and I've got myself, so we're all just living our lives here. Anyways, before we play that amazing interview, I needed to share with you a couple of things. Today, if you're listening to this on the 31st of December, New Year's Eve, today is the day that me and Donnie, my friend and partner in crime, launched the Kickstarter for Queerly Beloved Tees. Yes, we're becoming our own business, our own entity. It's taking off, and basically, we need your help to get it going. So if you go right now, there's going to be a link in the show notes as well as over on my blog and all over my social media. Go click that link. Go check out our Kickstarters, or just search Queerly Beloved Tees on Kickstarter. You'll find our Kickstarter, and we're looking to raise $4,000 in 30 days. I think it's more than possible. That is literally everyone who listens to this podcast giving $3, $4, $5, something like that. Not to mention there are great gifts that go and rewards for going along with actual stickers, shirts that are coming out from our line, which is some of our more beloved designs, and also some of our brand new designs, including hoodies and crew neck sweaters. I'm beyond thrilled that this is happening, and it's going to cause a few things to happen. Cheaper and better merchandise. The quality is going up. We're going to be able to charge less because we don't have to cover the overhead that we had to with the other third-party services we've used before. We're going to get better interaction with people who are purchasing our products, so that means that you and me and everybody else, we get to actually get to know each other a little bit better. It's really just a fantastic situation. So please do me a favor, go back the Kickstarter today. And best part, if you're going to the Q Christian Fellowship Conference, which is taking place in Chicago next week, I think. Yeah, next Thursday. You can actually pick up your rewards in person at the Q Christian Fellowship Conference. And if we happen to sell out of our merchandise, then we promise we'll get it to you by February when we do another run of shirts. So go ahead and get it done. Go over to all my social media, do that. Thank you in ahead of time for your support. You are amazing. And also, if you're listening to this on the 31st of January, this is the last day that you can register for Q Christian for online registration. I believe you can register in person. Don't quote me on that. Send them an email if you have a question. I'm excited for it. I am doing a whole lot of stuff at Q Christian. I'm helping lead worship. Friday at 12:30, I am going to be doing my podcast live at Q Christian, featuring my friends Matthias Roberts, Caitlin J. Stout, and Grayson Hester. We're going to be giving some decent advice. And then my special guests, Lisa and Michael Gungor, are joining me on stage to talk about their books and writing and becoming, all sorts of stuff. It's going to be an incredibly fun time, and I hope that you'll join us for that. And then on Saturday, I am going to be on a sexual ethics panel with the executive leadership team at 3 o'clock. And then finally, my last presentation is going to be called Let's Talk About Sexual Ethics. And it's going to be a workshop on helping form your own sexual ethics and doing a little bit of desire mapping, figuring out what you want, and how to do it from a way that is still holding scripture in high regard and being true to what God is doing in you. It's going to be so fantastic. So I hope you'll join me for that as well. All that information is over on my website, as well as over the Q Christian website. You can get registered at qchristian.org. I'll see you in Chicago. And if you wouldn't, okay, one more thing, and then we'll get into the conversation. Do me a favor, go follow Queerly Beloved Tees on all social media. You can find it. I've tagged it a few times on Instagram. It's definitely, you search Queerly Beloved Tees on the freaking Facebook. And yeah, I cannot wait to see y'all there. It's going to be so fun. Okay, now that I have gooped and gabbed about all these things, I just want to say I am gooped and gagged that the Reverend and Pastor Nadia Bolz-Weber came on my show. I think she's a lovely and amazing human. Her work has done so much for me, and I'm so glad that I went through 2018 just asking for what I want, because I can't think of a better way to close out this year and like 80 episodes of A Tiny Revolution with Nadia Bolz-Weber. She's an incredible woman and writer and pastor, and she's coming out with a new book very soon called Shameless, a sexual reformation, where we're tackling purity culture and sex and why as Christians we're so afraid of it. And as you know, as somebody who wants to be a sex educator and pastor myself, this is literally right in my wheelhouse. A little bit about Nadia. Nadia Bolz-Weber first hit the New York Times bestseller list with her 2013 memoir, The Bitingly Honest and Inspiring Pastrix, The Cranky but Beautiful Faith of a Sinner and Saint, followed by the critically acclaimed New York Times bestseller, Accidental Saints, in 2015, which was my introduction to her work, which was, again, phenomenal. She's a former stand-up comic and recovering alcoholic. Bolz-Weber is the founder and former pastor of a Lutheran congregation in Denver, House for All Sinners and Saints. She speaks at colleges, conferences around the globe, and is just a phenomenal human. If you ever get to have the pleasure of sitting down and spending time in her company, I highly suggest it, even if it's going to hear her speak, even if it's at some sort of event. And we also talk about being public figures in this weird Christian subculture kind of world. We talk about her new book. We talk about sex. It's just the literally everything I'm about. So yeah, I'm not gonna say anything else. Just go ahead and grab yourself a drink of whatever you prefer, and let's chill with my friend Nadia Bolz-Weber. Real talk, when I first started a podcast, I was like, I'm gonna be bold. I'm gonna ask everyone to be on the podcast. So I emailed Michelle and Barack through their respective websites. That's awesome. And got a really nice rejection email from them. It was great.
What more could you ask for, really? That's pretty good.
I loved it. So Michelle and Barack, when you listen to this recording, I'd love for you hit me up. I feel like you've got more time on your hands now, not being president and all.
Yeah.
I guess if someone didn't know who you are, the Reverend Nadia Bolz-Weber, what would you say to them? You're at a little social function and they say, so what do you do? What's your thing? You seem interesting.
I would probably tell them I'm an accountant. Isn't that Project put a tweet up today saying he was at a party, told everyone he was an accountant, and there were 0 follow-up questions. So I might have to steal that one from my friend Broderick Greer.
Yeah, I think I might too. Yeah. Or at least just be like, I say I do creative work, and I'm just like, then there's always some dumb question after that.
Yeah.
Sweet. So you're an accountant. How's how long have you been pastoring now for?
I was probably 11 years when I left house. I left in July, so I've been doing it for about 11 years.
Mm-hmm. What can I ask? What prompted that transition?
Yeah, for sure. It literally was just this feeling like it was the right time. I mean, there is no dramatic backstory other than I had really been aware of wanting to avoid founder syndrome since I started the church. I mean, from the very beginning. It was something that was in my peripheral vision, as something to be careful of, especially when you kind of have a big personality and you're the charismatic founder of a thing. It's very easy to have it to be too tangled up, your personal worth and identity too tangled up in the thing that you founded to its peril, because it's seldom true that the person who's right to start something is also the person who's right to maintain and manage something. That it's just seldom the same person. So anyway, it was, just a few things happened that felt I was trying to pay attention. I went, I think that's kind of a sign that it's time, that the moment's passed and now is a good time to hand it over. It was a long transition in a way, because Reagan Umber, who's the gay Episcopal priest who took over, he'd been there for over 3 years as the full-time clergy person while I was very part-time. And he really ran the show and was in charge. I mean, we worked really, really well together, and we continue to be friends and love each other dearly. But he was really the main guy for a long time. And so it was a long transition in a way. And I think that allowed it to still be going strong even after I totally stepped out of the scene.
Do you miss it?
I miss it desperately. Not that I want to still be the pastor there. I know that me being in that role is done, but I am actually very lonely, to be honest. I don't have community here locally, hardly at all. I have a couple good friends, but not community. I mean, I spent over a decade of my life building the community that I would feel the most comfortable in. And I was successful enough in doing that I'm no longer allowed to be there. In the Lutheran Church, when you step away from being a pastor, you're done. You don't show up again, at least for a year. And then it's not even a given that it would be a good idea, that it would be good for me or for them. But I'd do anything to just sneak in the back and worship with them. So there are parts of it, just regularly seeing the same people sounds so basic, but and it's something I think I might have taken for granted, to tell you the truth, until it was gone. And now I'm really feeling it. Yeah, I miss them dearly.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And also thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if that's painful to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it's just real. It's just, I try and be as honest as I can about things. And
which is what I really appreciate it. Almost to I think you said this a few places before, that honest to the point where I don't know. And this is being a semi-internet person myself. I experience this phenomenon of where I'll go up to somebody at a conference, or I was at the liturgist gathering recently. It was super duper fun. And there was this one young woman who, because she knew me from the internet, she felt like she had a lot of, what's the space in how she could interact with me, or assumed ways of being in the world. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I love you so much, and I just want you to leave me the fuck alone, girl.
It's
'cause there's a difference between the internet person or public persona that we put on, and the everyday, I'm kind of the messy asshole version of myself that most people get to see.
Oh, sure. I mean, look, I am in a couple weeks, I'll be on the cover of Spirituality and Health magazine. And literally, I flipped somebody off in traffic because I was late for my yoga class today. So that's I'm not kidding. I just fucking gave them, I was like, fuck you. They cut me off, and I sped around. I did the whole thing. I did the whole thing.
Wow.
And I was driving to yoga. I'm like, why in the world is someone like me on the cover of a Spirituality and Health magazine?
Girl, you go namaste on that.
Totally.
Namaste on that cover.
Yeah. So, I mean, the public thing can be difficult, and people know I'm pretty protective of myself when I'm at a public event. I'm not a quivering mass of emotional availability. I give whatever.
Whoa, can I borrow that? Yeah. I'm not a quivering mass of emotional availability. That is a mood.
Yeah. I mean, I have a commitment to try to be as emotionally present to what I'm saying when I'm on stage as I possibly can. I try to not be an affectation or a persona as much. I mean, of course you are to an extent when you're on stage, but I really do try to have an emotional honesty to my presence, and I can be really vulnerable, and that's what I have to offer. I have that to offer to a whole group, and I have that who come to see me, and I feel like they deserve that from me. and I have whatever I've written in my books or done in my videos to offer. And then that's it. I don't, I can't do a one-on-one Q&A after 45 minutes of doing it with 900 people. And, I've been slagged off online for not, showing interest in the stories of everyone whose book I'm signing. And I can't, I gave what I had. And a lot of people, they take that, they're grateful. They'll talk to their friends about whatever came up for them. But some people, it feels as though almost like there's so much transference when you're a public person. And nobody phones you up when you start becoming a public person to tell you how to manage it, and we're all wired differently. The first time when I very first started being asked to speak places, it was probably, I don't know, 2006 or 2007 or something. And Phyllis Tickle, God rest her soul, and Brian McLaren kind of took me under their wing a little bit. And they were available for me to sort of ask questions of them and to get some guidance, which I'll always be grateful. And I watched how they were when they were at public events, and they were both just the picture of graciousness. They would ask people about themselves, and they had this warmth to them, and it's really beautiful to see, right? And I thought, oh my God, I want to be like that. And so for about a year and a half, I answered every email that came to me from strangers. I really tried to be like them, and I was miserable and exhausted. And my spiritual director was like, Nadia, never in all this time I've known you have I known you to try to be like someone other than yourself. Stop. Right. You're not them. You're not wired the same as them. You will never be like them, and that's okay. And don't feel like you have to meet this standard of people who have a very different personality. And that was really helpful, So, but also I have to say, my life has changed a lot in the past few years. And I know that I hear a lot of people talk about self-care, about setting up boundaries. And I think all of that's excellent. I hear nobody talking about reassessing those boundaries to know, do you still need them? So I have realized there were some things I needed in place to really protect myself in public when I was on the road. And I've realized I just don't need the same things anymore. I'm very, just being in a very loving relationship has softened me in a lot of ways. And I feel safer in the world in a sense, and because I'm well loved. And so, for instance, just recently, the past few months, I've started going out when the audience is kind of being seated and stuff, and just talking to people, and they can get their picture or, come say hi, give me a hug. And I don't feel exhausted by that. Now, I can't do it afterwards. After I speak, I am an exposed nerve. My anxiety starts ticking up from the second I walk off stage till the second I get to my hotel room. So I can sign books, but I cannot I cannot process with people their reactions to what I just did. Like I can't do it. I can't take on their I'm in seminary because of you. Like all of that, I can't do it. I have nothing left. And so that's still true, but I've been going out and interacting with people before, and I'm fine. And that's something that wouldn't have been good for me a couple of years ago. So I think as we talk about self-care and we talk about boundaries, let that be part of the conversation too, to know that another form of self-care is knowing when you've put up a protection that you don't need anymore.
Right.
And
I think there's also just like the reassessing self-care, because so many people, because like what you need in one season of life is not going to be the same in the next season of life. So like, for example, like there are people who say like, I can't do X right now because of self-care, but just like, 2 years down the line, like right now, I'm saying no to a lot of like people's like, hey, do you want to be on this committee or this project or whatever? I'm like, no, I can't. I'm in seminary and I'm launching a business and I'm trying to get more speaking gigs myself. And I'm just like, I can't And all, man,
yeah.
the life. I went to over the summer. I went to this cute little Disciples of Christ youth camp, and I was told that like we want you to come in and like do this talk on this one day. And so I was going to come there for the beginning of the week, do this talk, stay the evening, and then head back to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And this lovely woman calls me the day before and said, "Hey, one of our counselors just dropped. Do you want to be a camp counselor?"
Oh, good
as well?
Lord. Wow.
And I'm like, you sure you ain't got nobody else?
Yeah.
And I'm like, she's like, no, not really. But I know like this is totally weird. I'm like, what the hell? Let's just do it. And so I got to be a camp counselor this summer, and it was so fun.
Right.
Like,
totally.
My extrovert, not to mention like, I think this was the first time like they ever had like a queer person show up to their camp.
Sure, yeah.
And I had like a dozen kids come out to me after that. I'm like, oh my God.
Of course. Baby. Of course.
It's the best. And I think it's a little weird being like, I always, not always, but I tend to be the person who's like pushing the boundaries, whatever space I'm in. And it gets, you know, I don't know if you ever like, I am sure, I assume you don't do this. You don't like really like watch your tone or like what you're saying based on your space because you don't want to ruffle feathers, or you just like, fuck it, I'm going to say
I don't do a lot of that, no. But I have a disclaimer at the beginning. I just say, look, I don't curate a certain version of myself. I think different groups would be more comfortable with. It's exhausting. I'd get it wrong. I just have a commitment to be me. And that means you might hear some language, you know, that you're not used to hearing in church. I don't know. I don't go to your church, but I'm assuming you'll be fine. You know, then I just go, like, you'll be okay. But no, it's too exhausting to do that. I mean, I probably shift slightly, but that would be the extent of it. Yeah.
So shifting gears a little bit, you are the author of 2 fantastic books, going on 3 fantastic books. Not that the reviews are out yet, but I've heard rumblings that it's a pretty dope book. And I wondered if you wanted to like give a little synopsis of Shameless and the genesis, because I remember talking to you about this like way back at Wild Goose like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it came out of my own experience. You know, I was raised obviously very, very fundamentalist Christian with all the crazy shit about gender roles and sex and extramarital sex and all that. But it was before the purity movement, you know. But I was raised with all that.
Before we all kissed dating goodbye.
Rejected it, you know, led this very different life. But then I discovered the Lutheran Church, and, you know, the ELCA is one of the most progressive denominations in the country. And yet there is a document you have to sign when you're ordained called Visions and Expectations that says that you would be faithful in marriage, or I think it's celibate or chaste in singleness. Well, the origin of this document was originally sort of forged through the denomination by a group that was trying to keep the homosexuals out of the pulpit, right? So it was a way of, it really was a way of keeping the homos down. And so because you would have to be celibate in your singleness and gay people couldn't get married, you know, and then that shifted, and then they're like, oh shit, right? But anyway, everybody has to sign this, and it's insane because what happens is there are all these people who get married right out of seminary because they can't afford to live separately. You know, they need to live in intern housing. And so they get married sooner than they should, or they have sexual relationships that they are forced to keep secret or not be honest about, or they are completely repressed. And we have, you know, single grown ass adults who are not flourishing in their sexual lives because the church says they shouldn't. So none of those things are great, really.
Nope.
And so, you know, I was, my ex-husband is a good man who is in no way deserving of me ever saying anything negative about him. He's a great guy, but we never connected. Like, there was no intimacy in our marriage. And for whatever reason, it just didn't happen for us. And so, you know, people are like wow, you don't do CrossFit anymore? I'm like, I was doing CrossFit because I wasn't having sex. You know what I mean? Like, it was just a way of like managing. And now I'm like all soft and I got long hair and I'm so much happier, you know? So what happened was, I get divorced, like the most amicable divorce you can imagine. No lawyers, no acrimony. It was great, right? It was actually really lovely. But I get together with my boyfriend and start having sex. And it was like, holy shit. I was like, it felt like an exfoliation of my whole spirit. I'm like, this is so good for my brain chemistry and my body and my heart and I'm like, fuck, man, why in the world would the church say, don't do this? Like, I could tell it was what I needed, and it was so good. And then 10 days later, after we get together, we've been together before, by the way. We were together in 93, 94. But anyway, so 10 days later, I have to go to Europe for 3.5 weeks on a book tour because the UK and the German edition of my book came out. So I was in England and France and Germany for 3.5 weeks after, years of sexlessness and 10 days of having sex, right? I was like, my mind was like swirling. I was like, what the fuck is happening? And so I was supposed to be writing a different book. I was supposed to be writing, those children's illustrated Bibles, pictures of Jesus, little synopsis.
Yes,
I was supposed to be writing one for grownups, like,
oh my gosh,
like
that
my
snarky
retelling of Bible stories with some great illustrations. I might still do it, but my heart wasn't in it. There was no passion. I was doing it because I was under contract to do it. You know what I mean? And then
right.
This happens. I'm walking down the street in London. I think Jess Cast was with me, to tell you the truth. And because she was on tour with me for 10 days. We just cried and ate. We'd just both gotten divorced and we were like insane. Anyway, so for 10 days, we tramped around England and Scotland eating and crying. And
that sounds literally
like it was pretty awesome. And so I was like, wait a minute, why did the church make me sign that thing? It makes how is it better for my church if I'm not getting laid? I mean, look, the church will entrust me with the care of souls and will not entrust me with my own grown-ass woman sexuality, like to make good decisions for myself. Now, don't fuck the flock. Clearly, I get that part.
I mean, that's a good
correct
rule, generally.
But I'm like, what the fuck? So I message, I WhatsApp Eric, my boyfriend, and I'm like, can you jump on Skype? And granted, this was with an unwarranted urgency, right? But I'm going, he gets on Skype. Now, he's not Christian. He's never been Christian. And I go, why do you think that the church has tried to control sex for so long? And without skipping a beat, my beloved said, I guess I always assumed that the church saw sex as its competition.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. And I went,
wow.
Oh, I'm right. I was like, I'm writing a book.
Damn. Now that's an origin story right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I obsessed about it for 1.5 years, 2 years, something like that. And interviewed my parishioners just saying, what message did you receive about sex in the body from the church and gender? And how did that message affect you? And how have you navigated your adult life? And then I tell really very personal stories from my own life. And I tell stories from other people's lives. And as a way of going, here's the harm. Here's the harm that these teachings have directly caused myself and these people. And if the teachings of the church are harming people, we need to rethink those teachings. We should never be more loyal to an idea or a doctrine or an interpretation of a Bible verse than we are to people. So that's the premise of the book. Yeah.
Ugh, damn. I'm going to hang up now because I just got slain. Jesus. No, but you're so right. Like, I remember when I, like my former partner and I, we started, I mean, like first date, like we slept in the same bed. We didn't have sex on the first date because I'm a good Christian woman. But second date, listen, second date onward, honey, it was on and popping, and it was, and like I I learned things about myself that I wouldn't have ever known how I had. So like, you know, like the way that I like viewed my body, the way that I viewed like my gender, like it's astounding to me. Not to mention just like that brought out like certain trauma that I have from my past that I hadn't dealt with, and I wouldn't have known that it was still subconscious if I wasn't vulnerable enough with another person, with my body.
Right. That's right. Yeah, totally. And I mean, I think it's just, I think that we can have brave conversations about all of this and allow people to figure out how to make good choices for themselves.
Yeah. Because I think there's also like this like critique from conservatives saying, I mean, like what's so interesting too about being someone who is very sex positive and somebody who is like pro non-monogamy, if you want to go in that direction. The thing that in the back of my mind that's playing is holy crap, I'm playing into every single stereotype that they told me would happen when I came out. Like gay people, all they do is have sex with a bunch of people and have orgies. And I'm like, man, I feel like in some ways, like I play into those stereotypes. Like I am fulfilling the sin that they said I would. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want them controlling my narrative anymore. Yeah. And I think that's where like a lot of people, they're still trying to play on the same playing field as evangelical, like purity culture theology. And that's really where I think that the conversations need to start shifting, is that like, if we really want to rethink what we think about queer folks, women, people of color, like if we're deconstructing this, then the next horizon is sex, marriage, and relationship structures. Because
but then again, like then who's controlling that narrative? Because I think also, you know, what I've seen in the queer community is to be like, well, to be really queer, then you have to be polyamorous because being monogamous is heteronormative. Well, then who's controlling that narrative? Is it the individual, or is it another scene with their own expectations of what it looks like to be good, right? So that's part of the conversation for me as well. I mean, I am completely wired as a monogamous person. It's not an ethic. It's literally just my wiring. Like that thing, my sexuality is ignited and sort of lit up through this chemical response to one other person. I can't make that happen in a different context with another person. Like I would just start giggling. Like it's just not, I can't do it. It doesn't happen.
Ironically, like if I'm ever having sex with multiple people, I am also giggling, but in a different way.
You're also giggling. So it's not, it's just, you know, it's literally wiring. And so sometimes some of the normative expectations might actually suit us, you know?
Yeah, I think so.
to have the actual freedom to say, no, that's good for me. And I've explored it. And that, you know, just because it's the normative expectation that we've been handed from society or the church doesn't mean, you know, we de facto have to sort of reject it.
Yeah. And I don't want to reject marriage as like a thing or monogamy as a thing, because I think when it's practiced well and done well, like people flourish. And I think that's the thing I always want to pay attention to, is like, it's like this ethic of just like, you're going to know a tree by its fruit, which I apply to almost every sort of like question is like, where do I see goodness happening for people? Because I said this for somebody else too recently. It's like the same thing you said, like we cannot be more loyal to a teaching or an institution than the people who are a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's right. And, also, I think there's this thing about people have been in some ways so disempowered by the church that it's a real process to even know what you want or who you are or what suits you. Right. Because a lot of us were told for a very long time, you can't trust yourself.
Yes.
Like literally told that.
Your body is, your flesh is weak.
That's right. And you can't trust what you want, you know? And boy, it's like, whew. Now, ironically, I think that it's important to always keep a fairly low anthropology intact, right? So I also don't think, oh, we should just completely trust all of our instincts and all of our desires, because I actually think that I do believe in the state of human sin, that there is, as Simeon Zoll would say, there's a reason why the system keeps throwing up errors. There's some sort of flaw in the human, or as Francis Spufford said, he calls sin the human propensity to fuck things up. Yep. And so the more I've been really obsessed with studying cognitive bias and with studying self-justification and dissonance theory and stuff like that, so that we have this amazing ability to tell ourselves the story we need to hear to have the thing we want and to still feel like we're good people. So, for me, it's also one of the things in progressive circles that I just can't stand is that they have such a high anthropology. And I think sometimes in progressive circles that we are not sufficiently suspicious of ourselves and our motives, because we're so like high self-esteem, you're awesome, you're perfect the way you are. All that stuff's great, but it has to be balanced with the actual truth, which is we have this human propensity to fuck things up and to hurt ourselves and other people.
Yeah, and I think there's also just like I think it goes back to the question of, or like the conversation we have about having around boundaries, where we want so much to create every space to be as safe as possible, and it can't work out that way, because what is safe for one person is not going to be safe for others. And if you just say you can't sit with us because you don't believe the same way, or if you don't have the same sexual ethic, then eventually we're all going to be sitting by ourselves.
Yeah. Well, one thing I learned from my friends at the Moth, I've been doing this storytelling workshop in the women's prison here on Tuesday nights, and my friends at the Moth taught me that you can't actually promise anyone a safe space, because we are so different, but we can all have a commitment for it to be a brave space.
Come on, Mickey Scott Bay Jones.
I like that. Who?
Oh, have you? Okay, so Mickey Scott Bay Jones, she worked for Faith Matters Network. She has this whole litany she wrote called The Invitation to Brave Space.
Oh my gosh.
And so before any workshop that she does, she invites people into Brave Space, where she even says, she's like, we have the responsibility, we have the right to start somewhere and to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think that we know. It will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect, but it will be our space, and we will work on it side by side.
Oh, I love that. Well, she's so great. Like I'm not even vaguely surprised that she would do something like that. Honestly. That's amazing. I love that. I love that everyone has the right to start somewhere and grow. It's like, could we have a little grace in progressive spaces on Twitter and stuff? I mean, the instant instinct to slaughter someone for an error is just vicious.
And I'll say, like, I'm not perfect at it. Like, I think maybe in the past 6 months, I've noticed myself composing like a really vicious response. I'm like, actually, this person is not worth my energy or my time. Because I used to be the person to respond to all of the bullshit and like all the trolls. But then at the end of the day, like, that cost me time, that cost me energy, and I can't get that back.
Yeah, it's not theirs. Yeah.
Yeah, it's much more effective to like, whoever's going to find my work finds it helpful, they're going to find it. Like, obviously, I actually had this conversation with something else. I think it's something you said. It was like, I'm not everybody's pastor. Because like I realized, like, with certain people I interact with, where like I want them, like, queer folks who are working through their can I be gay and Christian question. Yeah. I have to remember, like, I am so far beyond that, but like I used to be sitting exactly where they are. Or I look at someone like my mother, who is, I wouldn't call her an ally. She loves me, but like she doesn't say all the right things. But I'm not going to like, put her up on the guillotine just because, she doesn't know the lingo. It's but I noticed that among progressives, it's cutthroat.
Yeah, it's just a different form of sort of enforcing a purity system, Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, being progressive on social media is like a really poorly designed video game in which you never engage the other team. You just get ranking points by pointing out why your teammates are wrong, right? Then you get a rank. I mean, that's what the function is when people do that calling out shit, is that you get a ranking point. If, if there's somebody who people think is great and you get to point out something that where they're wrong, you get a ranking point. Well, congratulations. But I mean, is that really the work we're about? Good Lord.
God, like this is like, I don't know if you saw like progressive queer Twitter and ex-evangelical Twitter like got mad at QCF the other like 2 days ago. I didn't see that. Oh my God. Consider yourself lucky. I did the dumb thing of like trying to be someone who's reasonable, like affirming the hurt while also saying, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But like, it was that whole thing. And like, I had friends of mine who like, I got called out for stuff. And I'm just like, the thing is just like, we are on the same side, A, and B, sides are an illusion anyways. Like I get it. Yes, we have to speak out against injustice, but at the same time, like you have to realize like God loves that person.
Yeah.
And like, I know that like sounds so cheesy Christian, but like sometimes I'm a cheesy Christian.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So this book that's coming towards people, like if you were to say like what can people expect from this book, or what are you hoping happens as a result of this book?
I guess I'm hoping that people will feel less alone, that maybe they'll hear their story in one of my stories or one of the other stories in the book, and we'll see that, hey, there's so many ways to be faithful, that they're not alone in their experience. And also that they could, I want people to have better sex too.
Yes, mama.
I want people to feel uninhibited with their lover and to lose themselves in that. And, I think Christianity has led to a lot of really bad sex, and a lot of people shut down and not connected to their bodies and terrified to talk about sex with their partner and shy with their spouse. I mean,
God.
Oh God.
You are honestly describing the first part of my last relationship.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, I was in it. That was me. So I get it. And I mean, I guess that's my sort of hope for this. And I have a huge hope that there will be 100 other books like it from other social locations, that people will be writing their own stories more and more. Because I feel like I barely cleared my throat. There's so much to say, so, and like, all it is my stories and the ones that were shared with me in one parish in Denver, very limited. Right. Yeah. So, I want to hear what this type of thing looks like in a lot of different contexts and social locations. So I'm hoping, for more and more of that.
I can't wait. My friend Matthias Roberts, he's in the process of writing his first book, and it's on this particular topic about how diving deeper into our sexuality is the thing that leads towards more self-love, better quality of life, etc.
Yeah.
And then hopefully after I want my second book to be on queer sex, and like I want to call it Gay Sex is Awesome. And because I also want to put that on a shirt, because I think that more people because I think that would sell, take that around to every Pride festival, make a cool $1,000. I think we can do it. Yeah. Can I ask you, shifting gears ever so slightly again, about from someone who is a more mature Enneagram 8 to someone who is a younger 8, meaning myself. I know that like our thing is rediscovering our innocence what do they call, like, it's rediscovering our innocence and realizing that like we are safe.
Yeah.
What, at least like since I've been following you since, you know, your career and whatnot. Like, I think I've noticed the same thing you shared was that like you've become a softer individual, someone who's like not so, I don't know, you feel warm, and I like you.
Yeah.
And I think that like there's a part of my story that I'm still super defensive about, and like I have this propensity to just knee-jerk reaction go to anger with individuals. Like, what was the shift for you? Like, what were the things in your life that were happening that kind of led you towards this quote unquote maturing, whatever that means?
Boy.
And if that's too deep of a question, we can like talk about.
No, I think it's fine. It's just I'm trying to think where to even start. But I think I've become really interested in compassion, but not as a virtue. Like if somebody said, "Oh, there's this really great book on compassion you should read," I'm like, "Fuck that." I mean. You know, some warm, fluffy virtue where you can sort of transcend the fact that people are horrible shitheads and think loving thoughts about them. You know, I'm like, fuck, I can't do it, right? I'm not even interested in adopting virtues, you know? Also, I think it just creates situations where people have to pretend to be virtuous, even if they're not. So it feels like a setup. Anyway, but now I'm really interested in compassion in terms of what is the effect of it? That I'm interested in. Like, what effect has compassion had on me? Like, if I feel like somebody really is in a space of compassion towards me, what effect does that have on my body, on my reactions, on, you know, on how hard I am or how soft I am? Right. And so, you know, this world, you know, I just feel like this world is not safe, you know, and I'm constantly having to defend myself and protect myself. I mean, I am coming up with defenses in my brain to any attack that might be coming my way. I mean, from a stranger in the elevator. I mean, I am always convinced that people are going to come after me. You? Not like physically, but, you know, it's just weird, right? So,
I mean, I have that same sort of like weird fantasy. I'm just like, I honestly think I could, at any given moment, someone could come out of the woodwork and just like knife me or shoot me. Like that's.
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel that in a physical way. I mean, in a like emotional way or in a like, it's hard to explain. I mean, I just am always thinking people are mad at me about something. Anyway, so I'm thinking about compassion a lot. And I have tried to think, what would it like if there's somebody in my life or even just another person in the world, like what would it look like? I don't have to be compassionate towards them, but I ask myself, what would it look like if I were, right? How would it feel in my body if I had compassion for this person and their whole story, not just the one thing I'm reacting to? And I mean, I think I've learned a lot from the women in the prison because they have long, complex stories, and society only cares about this law they broke and then they put them away to punish them. Society didn't seem to give a shit about the fact that 2 meth addicts were allowed to raise this child, right? Like, they just care about the law. And so we all are carrying like such complicated stories, and we have these original wounds that we're trying to protect or heal or pretend aren't there or make up for. And so I think one of the things that's been the most helpful is how do I find a space of compassion for people who I want to just hate? And it doesn't excuse the behavior, but it changes something in my body and in my spirit when I do it. Now, it doesn't mean I live in it, but it's a practice. And so I think in self-compassion is very difficult. I'm my worst critic, you know? I'm the only one who knows I could have done better. You know what I mean? Like other people can be like, oh, you did great. Well, I know I could, right? And so
I get a talk one time, I totally fucked it up. And they're just like, Kevin, you were fine. I'm just like, no, I wasn't, Barbara.
Oh, it's brutal. It's brutal. So, So I think that's one of the things that's allowed me to soften, is to figure out where's a space of compassion for myself and where's a space of compassion for other people. And to kind of, I mean, that's how grace works, right? And so, yeah, nobody's ever only one thing, you know? So when I'm reacting to something, it's usually one thing in a person, and they're more than that. So I guess that's been helpful for me.
I love that.
And you just can't beat, like, I'm going to be 50 in a couple months. So
looking just 50 and fly as hell, girl.
Thank you. But it just is time, you know, it sort of wears us smooth, wears us down to something smoother, you know, if we allow it to.
Yeah.
I mean, I know so much less than I used to, is what it feels like. Like my spiritual director, who I've seen for a very long time, she's like, I kept saying the other day when we were meeting, I said, I just feel really confused. And she goes, you have never used that word. You have never used that word in this office. So like, I've gone from being so confident and sure about everything to actually kind of being a little confused about stuff. That's a softer place, you know?
I think the further I go along, what's so interesting for me is that I've only been out of the closet for 3 years, and I feel like I've lived 3 lifetimes. It's like my maturity track was pushed into like high gear, and I was like forced to mature because I had to figure out how to be an adult very quickly, and then at the same time figure out sex and church and theology and like what my role in this whole thing was. So it's I feel very similarly. It's like I feel like such a teen. Like I'm turning 30 in a year. Like I just turned 29. And I look at some of my friends from college who are same age as me, same age bracket. They're married and they have babies. I look at my little brother. He's had a baby. He built a house in Denver. Like, and I'm over here like $20,000 in commercial credit card debt, trying to launch a small business, going to seminary, like. And sometimes I'm now at this place. I'm just like, I don't care if I'm right anymore.
Yeah.
I just want to figure out like what's going to make me happy and what's going to help other people thrive.
Yeah.
That's what
and also hopefully we are all sort of growing and changing, that, you know, like Mickey said, like we're all allowed to start somewhere and learn, you know, and to not get too attached. I think I've just tried to not be too attached. I mean, there are things I wrote in books that like, I'm like, I don't even know if I believe that anymore. You know what I mean? Like, like it's humbling, you know, to realize, oh, I was so certain about these ideas and I'm less certain now, you know?
I think that is being a Christian. If like you're actually paying attention to your own experiences, just like I keep bumping into where I think God is, or where God stops, and it just turns out like it's not a wall, it's like a curtain, and there's like just more beyond it. So like always more mystery, always more love, always drawing the fucking circle wider, as my dear Presbyterian hymnal book says. I'm at a Presbyterian seminary right now, and I am not Presbyterian. Tell you what, they love John Calvin so much.
I know. Yeah, it's funny. I'd been in like Lutheran circles where like everyone's talking about Luther and all these Lutheran history things and the Lutheran theological identity and the weird thing is I didn't realize any other groups did that kind of thing, but I went to this thing at Princeton and they're all talking about a Presbyterian identity. And I'm like, what? Like,
you guys have your own autonomous ideas about what you believe about the mystery of God.
I'm like, a Presbyterian identity. What the hell? Yeah, it was funny. Yeah.
Like that. And then like, there's that one. I also have a lot of Methodist friends, and like, it's so funny because like I can mention like people who are like Methodist famous and people who are like Presbyterian famous, people who are famous, and then like post-evangelical famous, and like nobody knows about each other. I'm like, y'all.
I know, yeah.
Trying to be in as many circles as possible.
Well, it's really good to keep that perspective too, because these, you know, this this scene is so small, and like just
Really
to have like a little, for us all to have a little humility about that. Nobody in the real world knows these people or cares,
Yeah.
and so, or knows who I am or cares, it's like, just, I don't know. It's just
kind of nice in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a good perspective.
Yeah. Until you go to a party and they ask you what you do, right?
Yeah. I used to tell people on planes that I was a community organizer. Like,
I mean, technically true.
Yeah. I work for a nonprofit. I said that a few times.
Yeah, that's what my friend Miles says. And like, I was on my way to hop a plane to Orlando for the TRP conference, and I have like my face done. I always get dressed up to go to the airport because people treat you better if you're dressed up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And so I was dressed up, high femme with my face going on, and my Uber driver asked me what I did and like where I was headed, and I made the mistake of telling them I was going to this queer conference, and so it's like, so you're like I'm just like, gay? And he's like, yeah, and you're a Christian? And I'm like, oh fuck, this is gonna happen, isn't it?
Yeah.
Think about like what the Bible says, and I'm like, yeah. And anyways, that's probably another podcast for another time, called Things I Tell My Uber Driver.
Yes.
Thank you for your time and sharing your heart, and just, can I call you Nadia? Or do you prefer Reverend Nadia?
No, I prefer Nadia.
I think you're really, really a lovely woman, and a really, really talented writer and speaker, and I just
thank you.
I admire you, and I'm glad that we've got to spend time together. It's also been lovely, like running into you at all these like weird public events and weddings, and yeah, you're a really good dancer, by the way, too.
Oh my God, I love that you said that. Thank you.
You really are, y'all.
You're like, I love your books. I'm like, whatever. You're a good dancer. Oh.
No, that's a true. I think that's like maybe like a thing. There was like, oh my, people look at me as like, oh, I love your videos. I'm like, oh, okay. And there's like, just like, hey, I really liked it when you sang today. I'm just like, oh my God, thank you.
I know.
It's like, I think maybe it's like something about just like, I know that I'm good at that. I don't want you to notice that. I want you to notice the secret things that I'm not going to tell you about.
Yes, that's right. I love dancing. I have a book tour in January, February, beginning of March, and it's ending with dancing.
Oh, hell to the yes.
Yeah. I'm like, look, we're going to do this. So we will put on some dance songs and encourage people to get into their bodies and experience the pleasure of them, I'm
so ready for this.
Yeah.
I'll see you when you get to Atlanta. I'm really...
Yeah. Oh my God, Atlanta's going to be great. It's with Nichelle Goodry.
Oh!
There's another speaker. Yeah, there's another speaker at each stop. Just somebody who has a different sort of social location than I do, to sort of talk about their experience. So it'll be Nichelle. And I think maybe my boo will be there.
Oh my God.
I know.
I will melt into 1,000 pieces.
He is so sexy. I mean, look, I'm so in love with this man. We've been together for like almost 2.5 years. And like, when we're in public, I'm pretty sure every woman in this room totally has the hots for him. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just sure like they all feel the way I do about him. I'm like, look at him. How could you not just be going mad for this guy?
Yeah, listen, I'm like, just the way that you talked about him, I'm going mad for him. And I've only seen like one photograph, and I'm like, ugh.
I know.
Shaking in my body. That there's part of me that's like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get married one day, but I do want to fall in love. I think that'd be a delightful time.
Yeah, it's messy. It's messy, and it's vulnerable, and it's wonderful, and yeah, I'm grateful. And then sometimes I'm in a puddle of tears,
Classic.
So,
well, when I get into a relationship, I'll call you up and cry on the phone or something like that.
Oh my God, I have a couple of people. That's all I do. They're such good friends.
No, I do too. Like, we all have that one friend who are just like, I know if I call this person, they're going to pick up the phone, and I can just yell about anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I can't wait to get to Atlanta. I think it's gonna be a fun time. You, me, Nichelle. Let's go get coffee, tea.
Sounds good.
Can you please tell humans on the internet where they can find your work and like tweet at you and like when your book goes on sale and shit?
Yeah, let's see. Shameless is on sale January 29th. I'm doing a 13-city tour. If you still have purity rings, please mail them in.
Oh, yeah, because
You
you're
can
making
find
them
that.
into a vagina.
Yeah. I'm melting them into a vagina, a sculpture of a vagina. So we're collecting them for the next couple weeks. When does this air?
It can be out as quickly as you want it next week.
Okay, great. So if people go to NadiaBolzWeber.com, there's at the bottom of the homepage, you can click on something about the Purity Ring Project. So that's going to be great. And yeah, I'm on Twitter and mostly Twitter and Instagram. I don't do much Facebook. So
sick. Well, I like you. I think you're a lovely human.
I like you too.
I can't wait to see you in another wherever we end up together.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be soon. All right, baby.
All right. Hey, much love to you.
You too, babe.
That was my conversation with Nadia Bolz-Weber. You can get in touch with her all over the internet at Sarcastic Lutheran is her handle in most spaces. Search Nadia Bolz-Weber. You can find her website on the Googles, and be sure to pre-order Shameless, A Sexual Reformation, hitting stores everywhere on the 29th of January. Nadia, thank you so much for spending time with me. It was an incredible, incredible experience, and I can't wait to talk to you again. A Tiny Revolution is supported by 144 amazing humans on Patreon. If you don't know what Patreon is, it is a way for you to support the creatives in your life that are making the content that matters. So if you think conversations like this are important, if you want more progressive and more open-minded and more excited, like better conversations about faith and sexuality and gender injustice, if you want more of that, you can go to patreon.com and become a supporting partner. There's a lot of amazing things that are also hitting for my patrons today, and you can either become a sustaining partner today or when you listen, because you'll get instant access to everything once you become a patron. We've got the meditations that should have been out a month ago, but holidays and finals happen at the same time for me. But the meditations are now live on Patreon, so to all my patrons, you can go download those though and get your Zen on for the new year. We've also got the podcast Decent Advice, which you've got the a public version, and then you've got like the after show happening on my podcast. So if you want all of that goodness, go over to patreon.com, learn how you can become a sustaining partner, get plugged in with the most amazing people, or even score some free shirts from my new line, Queerly Beloved. And once again, go check out Queerly Beloved online, look for our Kickstarter, and seriously, back the Kickstarter, get yourself a free shirt. Like, what's better than that? Nothing's better than that. I am so thrilled for 2019 to continue creating with you. So thank you to everyone who has supported me thus far, and to everyone who's going to be doing this in the future with us. I think that's everything. So until next time, my BBs, go ahead and go, set up that appointment with your therapist, eat something really yummy, drink some water, move your body, take your meds, and also go watch Bird Box on Netflix. It's my personal favorite right now. It was super duper scary, but I'm into that sort of thing now, I think. Maybe not. I don't know. Scary movies are growing on me, which I never thought I'd ever say, but they're kind of growing on me. Not the gross ones. Anyways, this has been another episode of A Tiny Revolution. My name is Kevin Garcia, and I'll talk to you next week, babe. Bye.